So for today, I didn't plan anything specific. We can just review the material a little bit. Maybe chat about, I don't know, final exam, and you can ask questions. And we can chat about other relevant things if you want to. So regarding review, it's been a busy semester, I feel. There's been a lot of material that we have covered. So I'm really proud that you made it so far. But the final exam is, still there. So what are these things that come to my mind if I'm thinking about what's going on in this class? I think we spent quite a bit of time on foundations, meaning, elementary probability theory, properties of expectations, conditional expectations, all of that. There was a lot going on there because we needed those later on when we started to talk about the framework that we are using in the class, which is Markov decision processes. We talked specifically a lot about the Markov property. Right? So right after introducing these, we went into defining the objective of decision-making in Markov decision processes formulated with value functions. V pi, Q pi, V star, Q star, the properties of these, the Bellman equation, Bellman optimality equation, and the Bellman equation for policy evaluation, the fundamental theorem, that was saying that if you have the optimal value function, then the optimal value function is going to satisfy the Bellman optimality equation, and any policy that's greedy with respect to it is going to be an optimal policy. So in particular, there are memoryless optimal policies in any Markov decision process. Here, we had a block about contractions and dynamic programming algorithms. Which create the foundations. So these dynamic programming algorithms are variations of value iteration and policy iteration. And we learned about the contraction mapping theorem, which was contractions were a useful tool throughout the whole class to argue for the correctness of the various algorithms. And we also argued for the speed of convergence of these various algorithms. And that was all based on using contraction properties. So this was kind of the first block. And after that, oh, this marker is dying. After that, we talked about, well, I guess, did I left out something about bandits and exploration because the whole course was set up following Coursera that we started with that. But we'll come back to that. So sample-based methods, but the tabular case. And here we talked about Monte Carlo methods for episodic problems, for policy evaluation, and we talked about TD methods, TD0, but in addition to this, so these are covered in Coursera and also in the book. I also told you about this problem of that if you have sample-based access to an MDP, how fast can you recover a near optimal policy using a sample-based method? And we talked about the different access models. If you have sample-based access, and the access models were global or random, local, and online. And we learned about that in all of these access models, there are algorithms that in polynomial number of interactions in the size of the state action space and the inverse precision that is required are able to come up with a near optimal policy. All right? So that's efficient algorithms exist for this setting. The existence of efficient algorithms, let's put it that way. I stopped numbering this, but okay, like this is just one block. Okay. I think in the sample-based case, this is the gist of it. And this was for the tabular case. And then we moved on to functional approximation. So in the case of functional approximation, we talked about, there was a big block about TD and the convergence of TD. Where does it converge? If it converges, and then why would it converge? And under what conditions does it converge? Ooh, I'm stuck. Okay. So here we were going back to our contraction. Well, same here. So for For the analysis of theory, we were going back to contractions, and we were talking about the role of step sizes quite extensively. So if the step size is too small, then you might prematurely stop convergence. If the step size is too big, then your variance is going to be too much, and you're not converging. Has to be somewhere in between. And when you have noise, then it has to be tapering off. And those are captured by the Robbins-Monroe conditions. So we covered those here as well. And then we also covered efficient algorithms. Or the lack of thereof. So there are cases when you wish to have efficient algorithms, but there is no efficient algorithm, and there were cases when you can have efficient algorithms. So there are various results there. We also spent quite a bit of time on things like SARSA. I guess that also comes up here, because this was just for policy evaluation and for control. Yeah, I'm missing a bunch here. So we covered Q-learning and SARSA. And here we covered again Q-learning and SARSA. And we spent quite a bit of time wondering about double Q-learning, pros and cons. Oh, yeah. And so going back to the existence of efficient algorithms already in a tabular case, we connected back to bandits. OK, so I think I need to add bandits here, where we covered UCB, epsilon greedy, basic stuff. And so in the sample-based methods, if you have global or random access, then exploration is not an issue. But if you have anything else, then exploration becomes an issue. And if you recall, we covered an example that shows that epsilon greedy is not going to give you efficient algorithms. Limitations of epsilon greedy. So there exist efficient algorithms, but epsilon greedy, no matter how you try to play with it, is not going to cut it. So this, I was just reminded of this because here these are control algorithms, and you need to add explanation to them. And it's at this stage, it's not very obvious that, I mean, if you just try to add epsilon greedy exploration, like it's mostly done in the Coursera course and the book, then you also face this challenge. So you need to add exploration. We didn't talk about it, but it's just that, I guess we talked about it, but we didn't. I just mentioned that optimism is going to be your friend, but we didn't elaborate on how you would do that. It's just that there exist solutions to the exploration problem sometimes, and they are based on optimism. All right. I think that these are the lessons I want you to remember from the class? Short list? Told you we were busy. What about planning? Dyna and stuff like that? I'm not sure. It's okay. It was covered. There was nothing much to add there, right? So maybe the only thing I would add to that Dyna and ideas like that is that if you just look at, okay, what is the simplest efficient algorithm in the case of, let's say, global or random access, you collect samples, you build a model, solve the model, you're done. It's like Dyna. It doesn't have to happen incrementally. You can run dynamic programming on the top. You can do whatever. Like nothing is set in stone. Like these algorithms that are also in the book and Coursera are examples of things you can do. They are not like the final word or like the only way, or they are uniquely the best. No. They're just possibilities. But okay, yeah, Dyna is there. And I guess there were some worksheet questions related to Dyna, and you were expected to, read the book, understand what Dyna is about, how it works. Okay. Yes. Favorite learning method? I don't know. That's a weird question. I wish. I don't know. So what are different learning methods even, right? Like there are these gradient-based methods that are minimizing losses. It's a big family. It would be very boring if I said that was my favorite, so I can't say that. But that's something that you do a lot. Bootstrapping, playing around with bootstrapping. I like to do that, but like, does that make these learning methods my favorite? I don't know. Maybe I don't have a favorite learning method. What are the biggest applications of reinforcement learning? Wow, man. At the beginning, I had this slide, and then I was even expanding on it. And I don't know how to compare these applications, but these days, it's really crazy. I mean, Google TPUs have been designed with the help of reinforcement learning methods. Like, wow. That's in production. And supposedly, it made a big difference. I like applications that help with the environment, okay? And there are some applications of reinforcement learning of that type. For example, reducing energy use of heating of buildings and HVAC in general. I like those. At the U of A, my colleagues are working on something I started, but then I abandoned that because it was just going on for a long, long time, and I had other things to do, but they're keeping up with that. That's water filtration and optimize it. It's basically using energy, too much energy for cleaning the water with various techniques. And you're hoping that reinforcement learning can make a difference in reducing the energy use and automating the whole process. That's not an application that's in production, but we do have a production system with which we can run tests. So that's really exciting, but it's not used yet. Huh? ChatGPT, yeah, like these big language models or chat bots or whatnot are using reinforcement learning for fine-tuning, right? So that's also quite impactful, and you can expect it. Well, I guess it's hard to ignore that thing now, right? Yeah. I think that there are lots, and this changed during the last couple of years. It's really exciting. Good questions. I guess if I were you, I would ask no the question: is any of the algorithms we learned here about are using these applications? Right? Like, is this class relevant, or like, are we just like?
Are they?
They are. Yeah. So it's kind of cool that that these ideas are used in some form. Like, it's not, the textbook form, but like pretty close to what you'll be learning about. So a lot of these algorithms are estimating value functions and then doing the little greedy updates and maybe running epsilon greedy on the top. The lack of a better method. Yeah. And the concerns that you have learned about. So I like to think about not only like these pieces of algorithms and these algorithmic building blocks, but also the issues that they are addressing, right? Like exploration. It's like it's a non-trivial issue to even understand of what the heck is going on there. That you have to take the actions that don't look that great because you're controlling the way you're collecting the data. And that's not how things are normally done in machine learning. That's very unique to reinforcement learning. Yeah. Yeah, what do you guys think about ChatGPT and all this craziness that's going on around AI taking over of the world, maybe? Or we're just losing our jobs? Or are you going to have jobs? Or are you going to be a prompt engineer now? Or what are your thoughts? Yeah?
I think ChatGPT only good. I mean, I also use ChatGPT because it's fun. So what I think about ChatGPT, you want to build something on top of that if you want to move on.
Is going all the way. So what's missing?
Problem solving.
Problem-solving skills? I see.
Even when it's content, that if you ask it to do some type of calculation, it will make like the simplest errors.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it can be very silly, but sometimes it is like it provides insight, or like it gives you a very good summary of something. But you have to be extremely careful of whether you accept what it says. Very bad at writing code.
Anymore. You forget brackets all the time. You like paste the code and it's like you're missing like brackets, or they'll like reference variables and it's like never established.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's not very good.
It's a mixed feelings about it. Eh?
Yeah, I think you're right that it's good to look at the starting off point. I'll use it on like packets.
Right.
To establish my own understanding, but beyond that, it's kind of have to be very, very. Right? No, that's not what I wanted to go that long and then.
Also, I feel that it's very malleable, right? Push back on something, it's like, no, no.
Dumbest issue that I had is that it's like a capable, really basic rhythm.
Right. Yeah. Right. Beyond a certain size of numbers. Yeah. Right.
Not actually doing calculations. Like pattern matching of when someone has mentioned words previously. It's not actually understanding this one.
Yeah. Actually, I find it fascinating how far it gets by just learning about language in terms of reasoning. And it kind of tells me that, well, I was thinking about how humans learn mathematics, for example. You don't learn mathematics by given the rules of mathematics and, like logic. You don't start with logic. It's like as a kid, you go to school, you're exposed to problems, you see other people solving problems, you copy their behavior, and then you can get pretty far. So I think that's pretty amazing that it can get this far. Hmm?
The ChatGPT has been curated. They had to make sure it's not going to be racist.
Oh, for sure.
It's learning off the internet, and the internet is not always.
Yeah, even like the creation job, I don't envy them for that. Yeah. Reasoning, search. Right. Yeah, people are trying that for sure. They're building things on the top. Um, yeah. So why we don't have the robots that we are supposed to have by now? Like the humanoid walking here or playing soccer with us? That is a good question. I feel that we're very close to having that. And I think it's just a question of when are people going to put enough resources into it to have those skills and have those problems solved. So specifically the robots not working here, that's because hardware is really lagging behind. So the hardware that exists today is going to be super expensive. If you have the sensors, it's going to be super heavy. It's not agile, and so on and so forth. So the hardware development there are people who are trying to get away from that since for actually quite a long time. There is a guy, Chris Atkinson at CMU. I like his research. And he was trying robots with muscles and soft robots and interesting ideas like that. Yeah, I guess it's also partly the industrial needs are very different. Like, yeah, it would be very cute to have this humanoid moving around here or playing soccer, but is this useful? Yeah, maybe not so much, right?
Really hectic trash, but and immediately it was like attacked by people. But like put boxes over it, like use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it'd be maybe putting robots.
So the same thing right away. I mean, like there exists some humanoid robots, but they are safely guarded usually.
Yeah, like I don't think that would.
Right. Yeah. Page of notes.
We wrote like a right.
Oh yeah, okay, so that thing. Yeah. Sure. It has to be handwritten. Uh, I can also promise that the questions are not going to be trying to drag you, although you need to know some concepts and whatnot. But like the basic stuff like this. Yeah, sure. It's one page, one side of the page, two sides, because then I don't have to check. Small practical it is. Otherwise, I would need to walk around and like, oh, yes, I'm gonna do. I don't want to do that. Let's make it two-sided. Yeah. I haven't looked yet at the practice final. Almost surely not. Like you have seen that, like I modified the previous worksheets and previous examples quite a bit. So you can, like the directionality is going to be the same of these modifications. So maybe I'm going to be inspired by some of those problems, but stick to the style that we were following in the class. So you will not get the 3 questions. You will not get the write me an essay about something and I just solve this, solve that. Clear answers. We'll try to go for things that are not super hard to mark either. And they're not based on opinions or something like that. Yeah.
We cover the final. We cover a lot of
It can cover some of the midterm material. I don't, yeah. When I was thinking about it, so I haven't made the final yet, but I'm just thinking that like, oh yeah, like we have all these things and we should touch upon in the final on all these things that we had before. Like that's the point of a final. It's not just like the second half of the course, it's the final. Yeah. Happy? Not so happy. Happy, good, good. Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's a long final, right? Like 3 hours. Yeah. I will try to make it so that I plan it for an hour and a half. And then you just have some spare time. Usually my planning doesn't work anyway, so I have to have the factor of 2. Yeah. How to prepare for the final? I think worksheet problems are super useful. Notes are super useful. Coursera, like the quizzes are super useful. Are they still accessible, the past quizzes? They must be, right? Yeah. There is a certain temptation in me and the TAs to just recycle some of these other questions. You never know. We had lots of them, right? And okay, so the very high level, knowing these concepts, the ideas behind them, and then knowing specific technical things, little calculations that we were doing on the worksheets, these sort of things. if you were solving all the worksheet problems and were following the class, probably don't have to prepare. If you were able to solve these worksheet problems. Yeah.
Like about hours. Took like 10 minutes to run. Or like A star running instantly.
Oh wait, so A-star uses extra information, isn't it?
What's a good one?
Yeah.
Oh, it's given a practice.
Yeah, it knows stuff. Poor DynaQ. So the comment was that maybe we shouldn't have DynaQ in the course, in the final, because it's a really bad algorithm. Okay, he didn't say that, but it's like compared to A-star, if you want to solve shortest path problem in a grid word, A-star solves it in a microsecond, and DynaQ is going to take its time, 10 minutes or something. So what the heck? But it's very different. Like it uses so A-star is going to work for deterministic problems, and you have to have the heuristic function has to be optimistic. You have to have all this knowledge, and depends on the heuristic function that you're using whether you're gonna be okay or not. Whereas DynaQ doesn't have any idea about whether this is a grid word, whether you can teleport from this state to that state with this action magically. It's like, it never worked, but now maybe it's going to work. It doesn't know about the structure of the problem at all. And so it has to test a lot. And that's, in a way, the price of the generality as well, that it expects the environment to be stochastic. So it's not enough to try an action once and learn that, oh, this is the effect. If you wanted, you could modify it so that for deterministic problems, it is faster. You can also have you could have some version of it which is somewhat faster, but it's very disappointing fact of life that if the word could be stochastic, then you have to keep trying the same thing multiple times before you really know what you think you know. And it's like, it's really disheartening to see these little agents running around and doing it again and again. And like, you don't understand, why is it doing it? Well, because it's lacking any prior information. If you would add the prior information in, yeah, it could do better. Yeah. So I don't necessarily agree that DynaQ is a bad algorithm. I think it's a bad algorithm for other reasons. It's somehow unnecessarily complicated, and it lacks exploration, right? Like, that's really not good. But that's not why it sucks in gridword, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? We can cut it short too. I have officers if you have some further questions. And was happy to have you guys in the class. I enjoyed the questions. Enjoyed teaching you. I learned a lot by teaching you. Yes? Further learn reinforcement, like learn more about reinforcement learning. The what? The book? The textbook, the full textbook, CMPUT. Yeah, you can do that. Maybe pick other textbooks as well. Yeah. It depends on what way you want to learn. Like, do you want to gain more practical knowledge? Or do you want to go more in theory? Like, depends on what you want to do, where you would need to go. If you want to gain more practical knowledge, then I think that the next step is to implement and try as many as these algorithms and see what happens, and gain knowledge that way. There's almost nothing that compares to that. If you want to do theory, then it's a completely different story. Then I would recommend my book, which is a precursor to a maybe future reinforcement learning book, which is about just bandits. Just learn about bandits. Much simpler. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.